They don't have to justify it. Just, I want to be stinking rich. That's it.
Mm.
Without thinking of, oh gosh, she thinks she's too big. She thinks she's too nice. There is so much that that we're having to do together as the first generation of wealth makers. So I started off with property because it was the only thing that I knew at the time in terms of investing that felt like was going to give me the financial security that I was looking for.
Welcome all to our financial wellness podcast, From Roots to Fruits, where we nurture our roots to grow more delicious fruits. I'm your host, Arlene. Let's get started. Welcome back, everybody. I am so excited for this conversation with Cleo today. She is someone that I met through LinkedIn, and we have been messaging back and forth. I'm so excited to hear a little bit more about her work. Hi, Cleo.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. How are you doing?
Great, actually. If we say from a 1 to 10, I'm probably a really good solid 8. A lot of energy, and I'm raring to go today, especially for Monday. That's pretty good. I think probably more so because I got the kids to school on time, which is always an absolute reward for yourself. And everybody was sane. There was no tears. So in itself, I already feel like I'm winning for the day.
Perfect. Everyone is on form, which is fantastic.
Brilliant.
Interested in learning a little bit more about your work in terms of what led you to financial education. So I did a little bit of a LinkedIn stalking, looking at your experience so far. And I know you've got a corporate background and now you are educating women in managing their finances. Do you mind giving us a little bit of an introduction?
Yes, so thank you. So I'm Cleo Matlou. I'm a financial coach and a money trauma specialist. And how that was born is because I came from humble beginnings, meaning, hand to mouth, feast and famine kind of life. My family are from the Caribbean, so I'm second generation-ish because my dad was, pretty much raised there, and my mum, my granddad was the one who was brought up and born there. As we all know, or people who may not be listening, it was a struggle for the Black community who came over from the Caribbean in regards to getting anything when it came to wealth, really. And you had to kind of shut up and put up and just be grateful for whatever you had in terms of income, and keep yourself small and just do what you can to get by, and that was basically the kind of motto and the way that life was. So that it was brought down from a belief of money and a belief of wealth within the household, because they only knew what they could see in front of them and they did the best they could with the resources that they had. So the humble beginnings really came from that, really, because it was, never take it away from the previous generations who came over and migrated from here. It was very challenging to navigate the UK as being a Black person, and wanting to do best for themselves and for their families. So yeah, my mum still lives in the same council house as we did when I was 3 months old. And I just saw that there was a massive struggle when it came to money. And I had the belief that, if we had more money, then all life problems would be solved. So that was a very big driver for me to think, right, okay, I need to go and chase the money, and I was, the type of child actually would, do a paper round and have another job and have another job. Like I was always the kind of little hustler. But one of the big believers that I had was that, which was quite unique, is that money is everywhere. So I had that quite early on, an abundant mindset that money was everywhere. It just wasn't in this house. And I went on a quest to understand why that was. And that was my driving force, really, into progressing of where I am now. So I was able to take risks in things that I was just like, what's the worst that could happen? Never really knew anyone who went to university, never had any family that really left the community of Leicester, which is where I'm originally from. I just kind of took risks, and what's the worst could happen, because I could see that from where I was, the foundations the levels were quite low, so the only way was up for me. So with that belief, I thought, let's chase the money. So I went into accounting because that's like numbers, accounting. Let's go and do that. So went through that. Corporate. I loved corporate life. I still have a great feeling and love for it because it grew me as a person that I am today. And then I was able to, get up the ranks and actually, from a very young age, for me anyway, or for my whole family, I managed to get to six figures. And that for me was like my early 30s was something that I never thought in a million years someone like me, where I'm from, would be able to attain something like that, because it's just that type of money is just unheard of in my household, in my family. But it didn't solve all my problems. And that was a real slap in the face when I was just like, oh, okay. I really thought when I got to this level of life and this abundance, so to speak, that all my problems will be solved. And through that as well, in terms of chasing the money, I was very, very, very into understanding how to manage money and how to master money. And one of the, quite interesting things happened when I started my business. I started being quite visible about it, especially on LinkedIn. I had a few acquaintances from like over a decade ago, so there's nobody else who could do this kind of work. And I was like, what are you talking about? I said, these people that I haven't really spoken to over 10 years, says you was always talking about managing money and financial education and stuff like that. And I was like, I had no idea I was like this walking, talking educator in finance. And that's how people
already.
perceived me. And I had no idea that was the persona that I really people took away from. So with that, and also hitting six figures, I was like, just something's not right here. This is not making any sense, because I'm at the end of the rainbow, and the big pot of gold should be there for me to feel like everything's been solved. So then I started to really pay attention that a lot of people weren't as fortunate as I am to be able to in a position of understanding money the way that I did. And so I thought, okay, let me help out people in terms of that. And one of the things I'm always about sustainable change, and just the financial education part just was not creating that sustainable change, because they can get all the strategies, all the principles, learn how to do things from left to right, all the financial systems, the best savvy process I can provide them, and yet it won't stick. And that just doesn't sit well for me. So then what I started to learn more and more as I was starting to mentor people was actually it's way deeper than the money, and it's about your relationship with money and how you feel about money and the emotion that is behind it, the psychology of money. And then I went in complete rabbit hole from that point, which led me to be certified as a financial coach and certified as a money trauma specialist, which has led me to more understanding. Actually, to create sustainable change is that we need to understand the emotional side to what people see as money, because money is just money. It's not money that is a taboo topic or is the root of all evil or anything. Money is just money. It's just an exchange. There is nothing else about it other than that. It's just about how we feel about it, how we perceive it, and how we perceive ourselves and others with it. And we add the layer of the complexity of around money. And that is the part that I really focus on the most, especially people who are in a non-white background, because we have so many complexities from a cultural and societal perspective that it doesn't get the spotlight on the struggles of what we have learned and seen as we've grown up, and how that really impacts us of believing that we can be wealthy people today. So yeah, that's a very long introduction, but you can see you're gonna notice as soon as you get me on this topic and ask me these kind of questions, I'll just run with it. So you may have to reel me in a little bit.
No, I can feel passion, and just hearing your story just gets us to understand, what's motivating you and where this passion is coming from. And thank you for sharing. So first thing that I heard was Leicester, and it's like my second home. I'm from Leeds, so that's
Yeah,
exciting to
no.
know. And then you were so right in terms of the diaspora, people that moved from one country to the other, especially from a Black, background into the Western world. You're so right in terms of our parents parents laid down the groundwork to really like put a foundation for their children to then soar. So, but then the traumas that they would have gone through, it would have seeped through to us, which is why we're really like chasing that bag, chasing happiness in maybe things that show us that we have succeeded. But as you said, when you got to that stage, you were like, hold on a minute, this isn't the thing I should have been chasing. And I love that you went from being in your own right, you've succeeded, which is fantastic, to realizing that actually I need to give back. I need to teach people about how to better manage their money. And who better to learn from than someone who's actually achieved it, someone who's living and breathing it. So I loved learning that, and that you're also a fellow accountant. So that's fantastic. But you mentioned focusing on money trauma because we need to assess like where is everything coming from and understanding our behaviors. So I wonder if you don't mind going into a little bit detail around what you've learned so far and what does that actually mean, like
Yes.
money trauma.
Yeah, so money trauma in a very, very succinct nutshell is the way that we are activated based on previous events that we've experienced or seen others experience that is in relation to money. That provides a negative effect on us and how we then go about with money. So there's one example that I'll share. This is personal to me. Trigger warning, talking about death, is that in 2008, 3 days before I was meant to go on a holiday, my cousin, who was 18, suddenly passed away in a car crash. Which meant that I wasn't going to go on holiday, and I had travel insurance. I'm massive with insurances. I'm insured up to the eyeballs because I believe like that's protecting my wealth. Even when I was like 20, I firmly believed that. And then 2 weeks later, my aunt then posted her death certificate in the post to me, so then I can use my travel insurance to claim back as proof. And that made me feel physically sick. This belief in my head was like, I'm going to leverage off her debt and make money from it. That was the belief that I had. So that is a trauma experience that I've had that's in relation to being able to actually earn the right of having money given back to me, because that's what I protected my wealth for, to be able to actually do that. But that's a money trauma I still have to be very mindful of today, because there was that deep belief that I am leveraging off a unfortunate circumstance that shouldn't have happened, but did. And as much as I insure myself to ensure that I can protect my wealth and claim back the money that I rightly deserve, I still have a sticking point in terms of me having to fill out those forms and actually do it and actually claim back the money. Where there's some people, as soon as as soon as something happens, let's claim because I deserve it, and I have that mentality intellectually, but the body holds the score. Like I still feel like even now, just speaking about it makes me go, because right now I just had a car crash, a couple of weeks ago, someone went into me, so it's no fault. And I'm having to really give myself grace and compassion to go through the process and allow myself to, because of that one incident. So that in itself is like, from a very trauma-informed place, that's a very big T trauma that you would experience. Other ones as well, in terms of take like little T's, in terms of I know family members, which I overcome quite quickly, but is quite often something that you hear in the diaspora, is getting a mortgage. It's like it's bad to have debt, and therefore if you get a house and it's debt, then you're indebted, you somebody, and it's a bad thing. There is this then belief that you'd be like, okay, I don't want to buy a house because I'm going to be in debt, and all the stress that comes to it because debt is bad, and then you're being programmed into believing that. And also maybe it's seeing somebody who's had a negative effect of losing their house or something, and then that's then resulting in you believing, okay, I'm going to be living myself in stress and fear because what if I can't pay my mortgage, and then that's it, I'm going to be homeless. That is then inheriting somebody else's trauma, and that is also something that can happen too. So sometimes you don't actually necessarily realize that you actually are suffering from money trauma. But, unless you are challenging the way that you feel and just noticing that something's stopping you in order for you to be able to actually take the leap that you desire and create the wealth that you want, And one of the biggest ones that I do see quite often in terms of my clients as well, and also that I did experience, and only recently, last couple of years, realised from the same experience of my cousin, is that pensions was not a big priority for me because I didn't think I was going to reach retirement age because her life was short lived. And that often happens for a lot of people who have experienced premature death of people that were important to them in their lives. Whether you will see that they'll be like not focusing on their financial future as much as they want to, it's causing financial anxiety that they're not, but then equally tell themselves that they don't need to, because actually there's something in the back of their mind, there's a story that they've told themselves that, oh, I'm not going to reach there anyway, so what's the point in me actually doing it? So that, it's always better for me to bring it to life in terms of what money trauma is, but that's the examples that a lot of people can relate to and a lot of people do experience.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, especially sharing your personal story as well. It sounds like what you're describing is like us assessing our emotions and our triggers as well. And I know you've got your clients, so little plug, and we'll make sure we'll add the links for people to sign up to your services and your mentees as well. How do you advise people to start addressing that? So let's say that I'm just going about life. I don't know that I've got money traumas or trauma that's leading into bad behavior with money. What can I do to even figure that out in the first place?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I always ask my clients and myself is, what am I avoiding? What am I avoiding when it comes to money? And where am I not feeling at ease when it comes to money? So just asking yourself those questions can bring up some awareness to some of the areas that you are actually holding yourself back. So it could be, and again, this wasn't so much of a money trauma, but a story that I used to tell myself because I got to the six figures. It was just like, wow, it's taken me 3 days to earn what my mum takes to make in a month. And that can make you go to like, I don't deserve this money, to take it away, which means you spend it impulsively. You are not growing your wealth, growing your income by thinking ahead in terms of saving, investing, buying property. Those stories can really hold you back. So it's always tends to be in these places where you are avoiding to actually take more better financial decisions. So if you're avoiding to make financial decisions in certain areas of your life that will create the feeling of safety and security within yourself, often you will find that it is something to do with something that has happened in the past. Now, sometimes you'll be able to see it yourself. Sometimes it will require somebody to support you with it. Like one of my clients who came to me, and honestly, it came out completely from left field, where she was quite good with her money, but she could see something wrong with her relationship with money was playing about, and she thought it was coming from her parents, which is a big factor of it. But what she transpired is that one of her really close friends in university, another trigger warning here, is that he came over. Had guarantors here from a country he had to flee, and they were extremely wealthy. So he didn't come from wealth, and all of a sudden he was just then catapulted into this wealth. And it came with a lot for the individual. And for whatever reason, in terms of his journey or whatever it is, he committed suicide. And for her, she had this belief of wealthy means that you're not safe mentally, that your mental well-being will be destroyed if you are wealthy. Somewhere in her psyche, somewhere in her mind, she created this story, and it was just an off the cuff conversation that she just came up with when I was asking her questions, that she was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that story was actually running the show for me. That's why I was scared to be wealthy, because I thought my life would be in danger if I decide to move into that type of bracket when it comes to wealth and riches, because I deduced at one point that that's what it meant. And actually now speaking and vocalizing it and having that conversation, wow, it isn't true. but there was somewhere along the line of my life that I made it true, and that was holding me back. So there's sometimes it is very ingrained and is something that you probably just need a little bit of support in terms of etching out. But there's a lot of times that you can notice it yourself. But it's just always the case of where you're avoiding and just facing it head on and just deciding that you're going to do something different. You don't always have to tread through and bring things up the surface, because it's all about creating a level of safety in your body, creating a level of safety that it's okay for me to be a wealthy person. And it's just noticing where you're avoiding, giving yourself grace and compassion to be saying to yourself, I know I'm avoiding this, but telling yourself that you are safe and it's okay. It's okay to get that mortgage. I know that was my mother or my father, whoever, was saying that to protect me. And I thank them for that, for saying more, for what they did. But now I choose differently. And now I decide that for me to increase my wealth and to increase my income, increase my growth, is to buy that house. So it's not so much that you always have to always identify what it is, but just be gracious in yourself where you're avoiding and just choose something different.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I'm just hearing like it's all about your intentions and setting aside that time as well to just assess it and giving yourself grace, which is so important. We could be so mean to ourselves, especially when you start to compare yourself with other people. So I love that that's within your message. And you focus on supporting women, which is fantastic, and building their confidence, especially all round as well.
Yes.
Could you kind of link how financial resilience, financial confidence, how that could translate into success within their career or in the workplace?
Absolutely. Yeah. In the career and workplace, in your business, being a property owner, which I have 3, being in,
Wow.
investing, all that good stuff. It's like, it's not just about one, discriminating yourself against just focusing on one, because how you do one thing is how you do many things in your life. So the way that it can actually improve is because, for example, I know especially being part of the diaspora and leadership, people, how the hierarchy and the respect that you must have within culturally can sometimes find it challenging to how you then translate that into the workplace. So where in the diaspora, a lot of the respect is based on values and morals and stuff. But then when you go into a workplace and those morals and values can look different, it can be really hard to navigate the workplace. And why does that impact your money? It's because then if you're struggling to understand how you can navigate leadership, number one is, how do you navigate leadership as yourself to be someone who can actually go up the ladder to be a leader, feeling that there's the level of you being wrong of how you're doing it or what have you, being able to put your flavor in terms of how you deem as leadership, especially when it's a cultural difference, right? Because this country is predominantly the British way. So how do you bring in what you deem as leadership and something that is done a certain way into the way that you navigate life? And then also the respecting of your elders as well sometimes can be a challenge in you allowing yourself to challenge, because it's the level of respecting of the hierarchy and feeling that you're having to keep place more sometimes because of that. Well, they are deemed as more higher than me, so therefore I need to be careful of how I say things or how I do things, because there can sometimes be hierarchical shift. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody's like that, but that's just an example. So it's like, how do you marry the two areas together of how you have perceived in the way that culturally need to navigate the world, but then also how do you make that work for you? So I always say to myself, if somebody's saying this is how things should be and it doesn't resonate with me, I always ask the question, how do I make it work for me? How do I make it work for me? And navigate it from that perspective rather than that doesn't work and then closing yourself off. It's like, how do I make that work for me? And all of it does impact the way that you how you actually earn, because if you have different beliefs to where you are desiring to be, you've got to learn how to navigate and dance between the two. Of there is going to be differences, there is going to be different ways of how you see into how other people do, but it's just learning how to see how, you know, how it's going to best suit you both ways in order for you to be able to ask for the money rather than just taking what you've been given. You know, that's a big one, especially from the diaspora, where it's like I said at the beginning, parents just took what they was given because they had to be grateful that they had money anyway. So then that could elicit the feeling of, they gave me a salary, so I'm just going to say yes, when actually, you know, you've been lowballed. And it's like, how do you manage to have those conversations? Because the story and the belief that you has been inherited from your parents is, don't rock the boat, just take what's been given and don't ask anything. Well, actually, it's a different era now, and we are in a more liberated, more empowered position to be able to say, actually, this is what I desire, and not to compromise, but to come to a common ground of what it is that you would desire to have when it comes to your career and your workplace.
Quick break to talk about Roots to Froots and all the amazing stuff we've got in store this year. So we have workshops, we've got coaching sessions, and we've got in-person events. So check out our website to find out which is the right solution for you. We're also on social media, so you can interact with us, comment, send a DM, whatever you'd like. I also like to tell you about our digital learning hub, where we've got all the tools. We've got workbooks, we've got Excel documents on there, we've got videos to talk you through how to do certain tasks depending on the module that you would like to focus on, whether that is saving, paying off your debt, or if you'd like to just have a general pulse on how to budget. We have all of that for you on our Learning Hub. So follow the link and see you there. Yeah, I love that. And whilst you were speaking, I was just thinking in terms of, yes, in the workplace. And I've seen as well with like my business clients that are raising at the moment, the men, they go for the highest amount possible, and they just go out there and, start to get prospective investors. Whereas women, it's almost like they need to be convinced about the amount that they're asking for. And the average, you can definitely tell that there's a massive gap in how much we think we're even worth. We almost need to justify it to ourselves first. Whereas men just think, yeah, I deserve it, so therefore I'm going to go ask for it. And then they do get it. And it's because they're asked for it. So we need to be a lot more confident as well, because we can bring the same to the table.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, as I've done more research and more understanding of where some of this has come from, I think there is a massive amount of grace that needs to be given to women. Number one, from a place of perspective that women have always been taught, females have always been taught to give before they receive, that we are the giving, the nurturers. So we should expect to be doing a lot of things for free on that premise. Secondly, especially in the UK, especially in the westernized world, I only speak the UK because I know the years and facts and figures, but it's only been 50 years since women have been able to actually open a bank account without having a man guarantor as a guarantor. It's 50 years. Like 50 years is not a long time ago. Like that's only 13 years, before I was born, of the fact that women had to explain themselves as to why they felt that they deserved to be able to have a bank account and not have that independence to be able to just go about life when it came to money themselves. Equally, it was roughly around the same time that women could actually start to invest on the stock market. And also it was just so many layers in terms of people being able to actually invest at those times anyway, even with the stock market being available since the 1700s, but only women in the last 50 plus years have been able to actually be part of being invited to the table. So there's a whole lot of conditioning and so many conversations that have not been had with women in, for many, many years, it's only in a short period of time that women have been part of the conversation, let alone part being invited to the table. And what was being asked of from women is like, okay, you can do it, but it's still in a very dominated space. Not being, it wasn't, it was like, okay, you're allowed to come in these spaces with you plus 100 men, like, how do you navigate it?
And you have to fight to be heard in that room as well.
Exactly. So it's taken a while, but it's coming around more and more as we're seeing more women, breadwinners coming into the realm, that women are being, are owning themselves in the money sphere, that they are feeling that they are able to be part of that conversation and creating their own tables rather than waiting for men to be able to give them the space. We've still got a long way to go, but I just want women to really understand that it's not your fault that you are feeling like you're not being able to be as ballsy and audacious as men, just because it's not inherently not been something that you have been part of, and it's very recently that you have been. So it's going to take a while for that iteration to run and for women to feel a lot more safe in the space. And it's taken this generation, which is, we are the first generation that is saying no, having to do the ancestral work of believing that we're not capable, getting rid of all that and reprogramming ourselves that it's okay for us to be unreasonably wealthy and want to say we want to be wealthy, period, without having to say, so I can do this for the whole world and having to do that for, no, I just want to be filthy rich.
Yes.
I don't need to justify why I want to be. Men don't justify why they want to be wealthy rich.
No.
They don't have to justify it. Just, I want to be stinking rich. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Without thinking of, oh gosh, she thinks she's too big. She thinks she's too nice. It's all of that. It's all there. It's all there. And we are the ones that are having to do the work of before and the work of moving forward and rewriting that book, that it stops with us. So there is a lot. That's why we're really feeling it. We're really feeling it, because there is so much that we're having to rewire, reprogram, and then create, which has not been really done before. So, we just haven't had the training, or we haven't had the focus, we haven't had the direction, and we're all having to do that together, which is why it's so important that women do come together as community, because there is so much that we're having to do together as the first generation of wealth makers, and we have to give ourselves so much grace of the journey that we're going on in. It may take a little bit longer than men, but we're not men. We're not trying to compare ourselves to anything else other than ourselves.
Thanks for sharing. And also, like, the point that you're making as well, it's like, okay, it's on us, we need to do the work, which is great, but at the same time, the systems that are in place, the governments, the institutions, they also need to support us, which is what we're seeing. But there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And you go into workplaces, you go into universities to teach this, which is fantastic. Do you mind sharing the kind of content that you're discussing when you are in those institutions?
Yes. I think there's always two ways that you can actually tackle a problem. You can go bottom up or top up. And what I mean by that is trying to hit the government and say you need to change your legislations and change the way that you do things, or ground up by you empower the people where the government have no choice but to, because they're seeing a new wave, a new wave of things being done differently, that they have no choice. What they have in place is just not fit for purpose. And I'm a person who's working from the ground up, because I think for me, that's my part to play in the world in terms of doing that, rather than trying to fight governments. I've seen people do it many, many times. And, why is financial education not part of the curriculum? It's strategic. Let's not go down that road. We will have to have another hour to talk about that. So I go in from the bottom up and be like, okay, this is the kind of stuff that we need to know in order for us to empower and liberate ourselves. So when it comes to universities, it's mainly around the foundational bits. So around money mindset, not so much the money trauma. I think that's from that point, it's a case of catching them early and just saying, look, this is the mindset you want to, well, the invitation is to have a better mindset from this perspective, and to share, enlighten why they probably feel the way that they are, and then give them structures and processes and how they can actually improve that. So get them to have better habits and behaviors from the beginning, because a lot of them continually don't have that exposure at home, which again is it's just history rewriting itself, because where do you go to get this financial education? There isn't any spaces, really, or not enough if there are. So from a university perspective, that's definitely the space that I go into, and give them the taste and the foundations of investing, of debt management, of improving their credit score, why it's so important, how they can create a financial plan and a money plan. I don't use the word budget. You can see that in my content as to why I don't. Just the word B, just, I mean, I can imagine just saying the word budget. Sometimes it just makes me go, ee, and that's why I don't use it. So there's another way. I don't believe in budgeting. So yeah, learning how to save in the best way. So just really that the foundational bits in terms of financial education and literacy, and then overlay it in terms of why it's important from a money mindset perspective. So that element always comes in, because that's where things will stick better. And then from a workplace perspective, is adding this is quite the same, but I would focus more on the money mindset, because a lot of people who are in the workplace have probably read the books, has probably got some knowledge. They're just feeling like I don't know why this stuff is not sticking. Like, I've read enough books now for me to have the habits and behaviors of a good person with money management, and it's just not sticking. So I go from that place, and introduce a bit more depth when it comes to money mindset, and similar to what we've talked about in terms of why it's not their fault of where they are at, and also some of the things that they may be telling themselves when it comes to money, because it's like, I'm further down the line now, I should know what the hell I'm doing. And just allowing people to, again, the word of this conversation is grace. It's just a lot of grace in terms of where you're at, and just decide that you're going to choose different from where you are. And at that age and that point when you're in the workplace, there's a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of judgment on yourself when it comes to money and some of the decisions that you've made in the past. So it's all about unraveling that, because a lot of the things that we're terrible at doing as humans is that we beat ourselves up for stick all the time for mistakes that we've done in the past. So we always want to make sure that we, just allow, again, compassion of yourself and things that you did with the information that you knew. And then also finding a new way in terms of managing money that feels a lot more aligned, and why some of the decisions that you want to make sounds crazy to somebody else but actually feels great to you. And again, there's no right way, there's just the best way that you approach when it comes to your finances. And I think that's the biggest gap that there is when it comes to the financial education space, especially the finance bros. There was a way, and it's my way, and it's the only way, where every strategy works. You've just got to find one that works for you.
We're all living a different path. We've got different experiences. So yeah, it's so important to just have your own plan, essentially, because yeah, what works for one person definitely will not work for the other. And you touched on earlier the investments that you've had in property. I think we all know the statistics, especially for women investing, and we know from people that are from a Black background is starting to invest, it's just not tying up at the moment. And I love that you have your properties that you've invested in, and I'm not sure if you've got other stuff that you're investing in. Well, you're investing in yourself for sure, because you have a business as well. But do you mind touching on that, especially for women or for Black people, to start thinking about investing and growing their wealth for the long term?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started off with property again because it was the only thing that I knew at the time in terms of investing that felt like was going to give me the financial security that I was looking for, because that was always the thing that was drummed into you. It's like, we didn't do it, but make sure that you get yourself foundations and have a roof over your house that nobody can take from you, blah, blah, blah. So that was absolutely something that I always wanted to achieve for myself. I came with my first property when I was 24. And then I got a rental. That was just one of my biggest desires, to buy my own rental for myself. And it was more of a case to prove to myself that I could do it. Yeah, I just had the concept of the idea one day in August, and then by April, the keys were in my hands. Didn't have the deposit. Didn't have the deposit. I just worked my magic in getting this property, and yeah, I had the keys in my hand in like less than about 8-9 months, and put it up as an Airbnb, which was very successful. 6 months booked out at a time. And the reason why I did that is because that was one level and one avenue of wealth that I knew that I really wanted to create, and also as a way of semi-passive income, especially doing it as an Airbnb. It was to, profits were very reasonable, to be fair, paid my basic living costs, which is what my intention was. So, it's that security of knowing that if anything was to happen to me from a work perspective, at least I know that where I live, I will be able to keep the roof over my head, which was the incentive and the drive. So the way that I did it was, like I said, I'm a risk taker. I'm quite a risk taker for the good, for the bad sometimes. But I think because I see money as just money, and it's just money. And if I lose it, I learn from it, and if I succeed in it, then I've got what I desired. And a lot of time people see that losing money is a massive setback. It's actually, in fact, part of the process. You've got to be willing to lose before you get to win. It's just the way it is. And there is just no person on this planet that has acquired wealth that hasn't lost any money. So you can't save your way to wealth. It's just not possible. And you will not acquire what it is that you need for later on in life if you just have the perspective of just saving and just earning and just saving. Diversification is a massive, massive thing. It's really important. And using the magic of compound, which is then what I started to really understand, which was within investing. So index funds and ETFs is what I focus mainly on in terms of my investing, and using all the tax efficient ways possible to do that. So for my own journey in terms of investing for my children, put investments in terms of their junior ISAs, my stocks and shares ISAs, my pension. So having, and a pension for them as well. People don't realize you can get a pension for kids. It's actually a really, really underrated way of making your children a millionaire with not having to put that much in for them, because our brains can't comprehend the compound interest, because we are not very good at multiplying. We're very good at adding, subtracting, but multiplying money, our brains cannot comprehend it. It doesn't make sense investing in our logical minds. But the more that you actually understand compounding, it actually isn't fake, it's real in terms of how money can multiply itself in order for you to be able to, grow your money in quite a quick pace. It takes a bit a while at the beginning, but the momentum that you create and the consistency always reaps the benefits in terms of how you can actually invest. So I would say right now, I'm working towards having a more balanced, diversified portfolio, where I feel that too much is in my properties versus how much I've got in stocks and shares and my pension, which is why this year I'm really taking a big leap in actually selling my 2 properties and redesigning redesigning my portfolio to even that out a little bit. Just because that's my next iteration of life, and that's what I decide to do. And changing the property portfolio differently, that's going to benefit me even more, get more profit out of it. But yeah, so I can't honestly say that anyone taught me. I just allowed myself to, like I said, to lose. I've just always allowed myself to lose and sit well with that and be okay with that. And the more that I've done that, the quicker the acceleration of wealth has become for me. I lead by example, and I lead by somebody who has done it, which is why it makes it very easy for me to be relatable to other people and be able to teach other people as well, because I've done it and I also know people who have, and I'm always exposing myself to everything that is new and different to then also share with other people as well. So I don't know if that answered the question, but hopefully it does.
Yeah, it really did. In terms of how you started out, and what I heard, the message there is take a leap of faith and also be willing to risk, be willing to take different steps, because that's how you really accelerate
Yes.
and create that wealth. And I love the generational wealth that you're creating for your young ones, especially hearing your background and your story from your parents. So it only took you to break that generational curse. So that's quite amazing. And I'm sure you're also teaching your children how to better manage their finances, which is
Yeah, we're getting
great
there. We're
thing.
trying. We're trying.
Which,
Yeah, we're
yeah, they're a
trying.
bit young.
Yeah. 5-year-old, sort
Yeah.
of, but we're getting there. Slowly, easy does it.
Yeah, and children learn by just watching as well. So everything that you're doing, all the practices that you're doing, they will be kind of taking that in, which is great. And I'm conscious of time. I've got one more question to
Go for it.
ask you, which is if there's any reading materials, whether it's books or even something that people can watch that has helped you along or that you recommend currently to your clients, is there anything
Yes.
that you can share?
Yeah, so for all my clients, every single one, they get the book called Infinite Receiving by Susie Ashworth.
Wow.
It's a Sunday Times bestseller that was published a year ago. And she's actually my coach and mentor as well. She's a Black lady, British-born Nigerian, which is quite phenomenal to be surrounded by somebody or seeing somebody who is Black, who's has a six figure business and is doing what she's doing. And that book is really, really grounding in terms of wealth creation and how abundance and wealth and being able to see the potentiality of money. So that's one I would always highly, 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 highly recommend. Audio or also physical as well. Both of them are equally amazing.
Great. We will add the link so people can grab their copy. And even better, this is someone you know and is your mentor. So I'm excited to read it.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for all the gems that you just dropped. It was great learning about your journey and the work that you're doing as well. I love that you're supporting all your clients to just gain confidence, which affects their financial situation. And I'm sure it's a complete turn in terms of their long-term financial wellness. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yay.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you.
That is all for us today, guys. Join us next week for some more seeds to sow. And please remember to support us by following and leave a rating on our show on whichever platform you're listening to us from. To those watching on YouTube, please leave a like and a subscribe to our channel. All of your support goes a long way. Thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, keep shining.